Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Success After Trauma, where we bring on special guests. They share their story, what they've been through, what that aha moment was like for them, the journey of healing, and then how they're serving and giving back today. And today, our special guest is Vickie. Vickie Stolle. Vickie, last name? How do you pronounce your last name, Vickie?
It's Stolle.
Stolle. I'm
Yeah.
good because I've made that mistake before and went on repeating
Okay.
a butchered. So Vickie Stolle is the founder of the company Dragonfly Paradigm, a Cleft resilience community. She's a writer, a speaker, a pianist, a general aviation pilot, which is pretty cool, relentless list maker, which is right up my alley, book lover, strategy builder, and also a woman born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. Vickie knows firsthand experience the emotional challenges one goes through living with facial differences. As a result, she has built a community wherein she shares strategies and tools for building and maintaining emotional resilience for cleft affected individuals, as well as parents, caregivers, and cleft affected children. Vickie, I love this mission, what you're doing. I can't wait to dive in and talk about how important community is to me, and there's just so many similarities in what you're doing and what I'm interested in, have done, or interested in doing in the future. I'm so excited to connect with you. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of take us back to the beginning? How did everything get going?
Sure. Well, from the very, very beginning, I was born in 1977 with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. That was a surprise to my parents. It wasn't detected on any ultrasounds or anything like that before I was born. So they were surprisingly, or I guess I should say not surprisingly, sort of shocked and a bit overwhelmed of what else they were going to have to deal with in addition to just raising a child. So overall, my childhood was actually really wonderful. I had two very supportive parents who created a wonderful home for me. And I think with most people, it really isn't until you get around other kids, other people that things from the outside start coming in. And my overall journey living with a cleft, I look back actually is very positive. But one of the bigger things, excuse me, that I really didn't realize that I hadn't dealt with was actually owning my story and taking the power back from others where I just kind of let people tell me things about myself. And I wasn't doing a lot of driving of that. And in fact, I did almost anything that I could when I was growing up to not talk about my cleft. I felt like if I just didn't talk about it, it didn't exist, and unless things came up, just physically or what have you, I just really kind of had my blinders on with that because I didn't want it to define me, right? I didn't want that to be the only thing that people would ever see or notice or talk to me about. So I just wanted to push it away. And it wasn't until I became a parent myself and my daughter was going through some bullying issues herself in school that I realized after having a very intense reaction to it and more so than what the situation called for, that was my sign that I knew I had work to do on myself in order to be a better parent to her, in order just to handle all the things that are going to come up in her life as, being a 9-year-old and going through adolescence and all of that. So that was really a wake up call for me that, I think maybe I'm bringing some of my baggage from my own childhood and projecting it onto her where the situations were not the same, but I went from 0 to 60
Hmm.
in my reaction. And so I knew that I needed to take a step back, do some healing, do some work, because I didn't want that to be the way that I handle things with her at all. She is not cleft affected. And so, I mean, kids go through all kinds of things, people go through all kinds of things, and the cleft doesn't necessarily make mine, worse, but I was doing a lot of projecting onto
Hmm.
onto her situation, and so that really started me just on that personal growth journey, and doing a lot of that work. And then from that, being more comfortable, being owning my story, I realized that although there's a lot of information out there on the medical side of things when it comes to cleft treatments and procedures and all of that, not a lot of focus is paid to the emotional side. and especially, parents that are caregivers of cleft affected children, they're consumed with all the medical stuff, rightfully so.
Hmm.
And sometimes they can feel that, oh, once that last surgery is done, okay, let's go. But,
Mm,
we live with this our entire life, and the
mm.
emotional side of things is where, at least for me, that was really where the greatest work, had to come in. So that was really kind of, what pushed me on this journey. And then just being more comfortable and willing to share my story, and the response has been unbelievable.
That's
So
incredible.
it not only helps others, but it's really helped me, as we find through giving is really where we get a lot of the healing.
So much so when we own our story. All of everyone that has trauma, whatever that I use the label trauma, but experiences in the past that weren't
Mhm.
favorable for us. Um, there comes a time, hopefully, I hope for everyone, there comes a time when we just like own the crap out of our story, and it's just so empowering, and the healing really does begin.
Yeah, taking that power back, and
Yes.
that's just, man, once you can do that.
What are some of what are you willing to share around what was some of your healing journey, modalities you might have went through, or processes, or anything that along, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Really, one of the things that really helped was this book called What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. I bought it. So, I like Oprah. Who doesn't like Oprah? She always has good things to say. Um, but it took me a long time to actually open it because of the title. Because the title, What Happened to You, is basically the question I've been asked my entire life. So right from the get-go, like the title of that book was triggering. 'Cause it's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean what happened to me? And so finally kind of, taking it chapter by chapter. Um, but that book just completely opened my eyes to, well, just the trauma that I went through. Because honestly, and I don't know, too much of your origin story, but
Hmm.
I always thought that trauma was, capital T, big T trauma.
Hmm. Hmm.
When you take that little silly test of like 7 things that say you have trauma, like divorce and death of a family member, all those kind of big things, I
Hmm.
didn't have any of it growing up. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I didn't have any trauma. Well, actually, I did. Going in for surgery at just 3 months old is traumatic, and
Very, very.
13 surgeries over my lifetime, on my face is traumatic. And
Hmm.
then, just the emotional side of things. So that really helped me understand that, almost kind of owning that yes, I did experience trauma. And yes, it informed the way that I behaved and, the kind of person that I grew into. And now, again, through that book, showing ways to heal, ways to process, and ways to just even acknowledge the fact that, that was pretty traumatic. It's okay, to own that.
Literally realizing that I think that's so powerful. Sharing that trauma is so relative, and again, that's why I had attached to that word somewhere along in my journey. I was like, yeah, trauma. As everyone has trauma, And then I started realizing people are like, I'm trauma, and some people were even what's a good word or label, but like they felt less than to say that there's this trauma.
Sure, like there's a shame around it.
Oh my gosh. And
Mhm.
and ultimately I love that we're the shining light on things like when you say having surgery at was it 3 months old? Is that accurate?
It's the
Having
first one, yeah.
at 3 months old, I don't know if you could process that and understand what trauma is. However, that creates a complex equivalence in the mind. So now we have this equals that, and a coding is in place.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah. I mean, whatever literally everything we've been through has created our coding one way or another, however we want to label it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
powerful.
Yeah, that's what I really think about, because really my big mission is just helping people learn ways to build their personal skills of resilience. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, like so and so over here is really resilient. They can get through anything, where I just, I can't manage. And some people tend to think that it's almost like something you're born with or you're not. It's like having this sort of inner, ability to handle that. But that couldn't be further from the truth, and especially as when we're kids, we are resilient. We hear that phrase all the time, kids are resilient. Well, we don't have any other choice. We're doing exactly what we have to do in order to survive, basically. And until we can get older or have someone show us or be around others where, well, hey, this is what you've done up until this point, and it served you, but maybe this would be a better way to handle that, and just, you don't know until you get exposed to it. And so it's just, yeah, like
I,
I get
I love it.
goosebumps sometimes
Yes.
talking about it.
Yeah, keep going, keep going. I'm over here loving it. I'm loving it. It's so much value. You said it. I mean, I look at my childhood as there was for the first roughly 26 years, I lived life as a victim. I did really good at it. And I really believed, like, I can think back to a time when people would try to have the conversations with me, and I truly actually believed, I was like, this person, they don't understand though. They don't know they don't understand what I've been through. I can't.
Yep.
And until we have our eyes opened, and whatever the way, whatever sequence of words or modalities or person or connection it is, well, the old saying, once we see it, we can't unsee it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, in order to be it, you have to see it, and like, yeah, I mean, I just think we don't know what we're capable of until we can see maybe somebody else that's similar to us or has had similar situations, and here they are, and it's like, oh, well, I could do that.
Speaking of which, tell me, I would love to hear, okay, community.
Mm,
So powerful. I want to share a little vulnerability. So along my journey, there was a period early in my journey, a big long period. I made it stretch for a while. I carried it for a while, really good. There was a period
professionals at
where,
that.
yeah, yeah, I did not. I had such a scarcity mindset. I thought I was in competition with the people that were my community. It held me back from community for so long.
Yeah.
And now I understand. Oh my gosh, community. If anyone is experiencing what I did, just get in the community.
Yeah.
There's, oh my gosh, because we find like no one else understands. Like, these people understand at a level that just no one else can understand. Okay, can you take me on the journey? What was your aha moment of, I'm going to launch a community, and like, how did that go for you?
Sure. Well, just backing up a little bit, I grew up in a small town just outside of Eugene, Oregon, so in the Pacific Northwest. And up until probably I was in high school at some point was the first time I ever saw anybody that looked like me. So, I mean, just that fact alone,
Mm.
you know, can hopefully people can understand feelings of isolation and loneliness, and that really no one understands because there's nobody that looks like me. And, this was back in the 80s, of course, and there weren't any kind of online communities. My parents did the best they could and took me to certain things, but it was always kind of, associated with, hospitals and the medical side of thing. So I think that's also maybe one reason that, well, I'm just not going to talk about it because what's the point? There's nobody here that really understands. And so you
Mm.
also can sometimes, I think, get a little bit of a chip on your shoulder about that,
I get
and
it.
so it's just like, anyway. So um,
Yeah.
again, it really wasn't, and I've always had a, good group of friends, and always been able to kind of feel that I can be myself, but with one layer removed, basically. Like,
Mm.
sure, you get to know me and my silly side, and I love music. We do all these kind of fun things together, but I'm not talking about this, you know. And again, it really wasn't until, having that situation with my daughter, doing that work, talking with my husband about, like, I really want to do something for myself, kind of start my own thing, but what is that going to be? And I was like, oh, well, I can help women, learn skills of resilience. And he's like, that's great. He's like, but you also have some pretty unique perspective about one certain thing. And I was like, oh, like, and, and he was right. And so I just started dipping my toe in and joining some online community groups on Facebook, and just seeing the number of people in those groups. Like one group that I'm in is like 10,000 people. It's like, what? Like it just,
Yeah.
blows my mind. Um, and so then I just started sharing a little bit here, a little bit there, and, getting some real positive response from that. And, again, my focus is kind of on that emotional side of things. And, parents especially are hungry for that. I
Mhm.
can't tell you how many times I've been stopped in the grocery store by a parent who has a little one in their grocery cart going, can I ask you, can I talk to you about this? And it's like, now I'm all right with it. I'm like, sure, let's go grab some coffee. But really,
Right.
they just want to know that their kids are going to be okay, And so if I can share what my parents did for me, as well as what I wished I had a little more of or a little
Mhm.
less of,
Mhm.
just to help others that are coming up. I mean, just so they can learn a little bit earlier than I did to
Yeah.
take that power,
Yeah. To
you know,
take that power.
take
That's it.
it.
We have a, it's why, we, once you see it, you can't unsee it. We are very, very powerful energy being sources, um people. We're very powerful, and we hide from our own power
Yeah.
because of the trauma, and we don't even
Yeah.
realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just even, I think, on a bigger scale than that, just, the world at large, they're not always the ones championing everybody being different, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers to it, I think. And especially nowadays, in the age of social media and just all the other things that are going on for our kids, it's harder, I think, to really fight that individuality kind of battle.
Yeah, yeah. One, and with so many, I'm a big advocate of individuality, self-expression, personally, and I take my I believe that everyone should be able to have their belief, then it just can't be projected on someone else. So that's where the line gets drawn.
Sure.
But then it becomes hard, because then we have all of the, as we increase population, we're like, oh, I can mix vanilla and strawberry and have an even new flavor that we haven't even seen yet. And so, yeah, there's that
Hmm.
confusion of everyone, like, well, what, especially as the younger minds, what am I supposed to do? Well, the actuality is, and also, the passing of the torch from the last generation and the generation before that to the next, because once upon a time, we go back far enough, you should be doing things if you want to survive.
Yeah.
Well, by
Yeah.
today's standards, there's not, like, kids are like, oh, well, what do I have to do, or what should I do? Oh no. Oh no, which one makes your heart feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that passing of torch of information, what the, 2 generations ago passed on was accurate information 2 generations ago,
Yep.
and so forth. So, what we also, to say battle that, it's a that's evidence of unconscious programming of mind to say battle it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, that just it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is just, human beings are wired for that from the very beginning of assessing danger, avoiding danger, doing what you need to do. And it's sometimes funny to me to think that, well, people nowadays just think, well, we're so evolved, we shouldn't have those instincts, but those instincts don't go away. We're still trained to assess for danger, and our bodies still have the same reactions to it. But, that's where the education comes in, and just talking about these things that, yes, my body is reacting in this fight or flight response because that's what it's trained to do. But my brain can say, well, that's just somebody, cutting me off to get a parking spot. Like it's not, it's not a
Hmm.
big
Hmm.
deal. So it's really trying to understand, and accept the way that our humans are made, but then adapting that for, the current situation and society as it is. So it's hard.
Yeah. It's a journey, and well, and for everyone on the journey, for everyone, right? Is it everyone? But for most of us, we learn that the journey's just never ending in actuality.
Right.
It definitely is a journey, and it's a journey of really learning who we are before the world tainted us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got a lot of tainting to get through
Yeah.
to that's why, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's so rewarding. And for everyone listening, depending on where you're at in the journey, if if you're along in the journey, you understand this. If you're new in the journey, it can be kind of daunting, but as soon as you get on the thought like it never ends, so if you just keep working,
Yeah.
oh, it's so fun, it's so empowering, it's so freeing.
Yeah.
um Tell us a little bit about your experience of what are some of the ways you experienced really um stepping into your power and your freedom with realizing like, oh wow, I want more, that addiction that comes with it almost.
Sure. I mean, again, growing up in a small town, and just, it was kind of a blessing and a curse. The curse of it, it's like it was tiny. At that time it was under 2,000 people, so real small. Everybody knew everybody, and so not a lot of, diversity or just other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side of that, especially when it comes to just, me living with a visible difference, kind of the novelty of me wore off because I went to kindergarten with the same kids I graduated high school with,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so overall, that's why I say, like, my childhood actually was quite good. I had a handful of bullying incidents. Um, but again, because it was a small town and my mother was very much a mama bear, like, it got handled, and I had a
Mm-hmm.
nice group
Mm-hmm.
of friends. And by the time, eighth grade high school rolled around, nobody ever said anything to me. But then once graduating high school and going to my first year at University of Oregon, where my first biology class was 500 kids, but my entire high school was 500 kids. I mean, it was just talking about a fish out of water. I mean, it was intense. And what I've just come to realize, and I've been doing, this personal growth journey never stops, that
Right.
um, is that I was thrust back into that state of being afraid all the time. I had, just, kids leaving the home and going to school for the first time. We all have that kind of anxiousness, or going from elementary to middle school. You've got, that. But like I said, because it was the same kids from 7 to 17, I kind of didn't have to worry about that so much. So then stepping onto that college campus for the first time, it was like, I didn't have my little group of friends. I didn't have, the teachers that I liked. I didn't have any of
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I was really struggling. I was flailing. And it ended up getting to the point where I thought I diagnosed myself with chronic fatigue syndrome because I was tired all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was sleeping. I was doing this.
Well, it's because I'm sure your nervous system was running on like hyper
Oh yeah.
overdrive.
I mean, constant fight or flight, just all the time. I mean, hypervigilance, again, now I know, but like up here, the
Yeah,
whole time.
yeah.
But it got so bad to where I would sleep in my car instead of going to class. Like I just didn't want to deal with it. And
Wow.
now I know it wasn't chronic fatigue. I was depressed. I was completely depressed. And again, my mother especially very in tune, and we have a very loving relationship. And so she's like, we need to change this, because she's the
Mhm.
one that really wanted me to go to college, like go to a 4-year university, get your degree, all that stuff. But I actually felt I wanted to do something different. And back in high school, my dad had paid for a little half-hour little flight around the airport, a little sightseeing thing. Man, that 30 minutes was all it took. I was hooked. And so I was always thinking about like aviation and flying. And so I talked with my parents. There was a community college in Eugene that had a 2-year program to come out with your flight instructor certificate. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I've been thinking about this, had to like, my mother was an English teacher, so I had to write a little report, about why I wanted
Yeah,
to do what I
yeah.
wanted to do.
That's
Um,
great.
but they supported me in that. She didn't fight me on continuing, or like just give it another year at the University of Oregon, because she could see with her own eyes that I was struggling. Um, and that made all the difference. I mean, I went from feeling so low, like I said, sleeping in my car instead of going to class, to getting the outstanding second year student award at LCC in the flight technology department and becoming an instructor there. Like it just,
That's incredible.
it wasn't, it really, again, I'm getting goosebumps, but it made all the difference. And just,
Yeah.
they trusted me to make a decision for myself. It was very expensive, but I was able to find, financing and loans for that. And it just like, it changed everything for me. My confidence went through the roof. And, another part of that is that here I am good at something that had absolutely nothing to do with the way that I looked,
Yeah.
especially being a woman, right? And being judged by
Yeah.
society standards of
Society.
what a
Yeah.
woman should look like too. So that really gave me a boost. And so that really changed like, oh, and back then that was in the, late 90s. It was just me and like two other women. So it was like, we're kind of, everybody wanted to pay attention to us too, and like here we are doing this thing. And so it was a really excellent time. And I think if I had not done that, I'm not exactly sure, how that would have gone.
One and I mean just praise to your parents and your mom, and something that I realized, and at some level she knew what she was doing. I don't know how much the way I would. That was a beautiful exchange of energy, having you write that, whatever she had you write. All that was, and I'm not sure exactly what your mom's logical thought was at that time, but all this was is a gauge of your commitment. If
Hmm.
you want this, you'll complete this. It probably didn't matter necessarily what it said. Maybe it did. I can't say actually.
Sure.
But I believe that to be true with what humans would call luck.
Mm.
Humans, I'm an alien. What people, I use that term a lot, humans. People laugh at me. What people would refer to as luck, I believe that whatever our higher power is, when we put forth effort, we are rewarded
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
I That's my belief in things. But
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like I think all luck is just preparation and opportunity.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, you could
And
have a great opportunity fall in your lap, but if you're not prepared, you're either
you're
going to
not
crash and
prepared.
burn,
Bingo,
like,
bingo.
yeah,
And essentially, if one wanted to believe in abundance, the opportunity always exists. So when you prepare yourself, you're always getting lucky.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I mean, I choose to really. Once upon a time, I didn't believe that.
sure,
Now I operate extremely in law of attraction and things of that
yeah,
nature. Okay, tell me a little bit about where your community. Where do you host your community?
sure. Well, primarily, it's I have a newsletter, email list, but I run a just a Facebook page
Beautiful. Yep.
for the Cleft community. I also have a YouTube channel because I felt at the time, just again drawing on my experience of never seeing anybody that looked like me until I was 16 years old. I want to put the Cleft community out there
Yeah.
because all it takes is just seeing somebody else like you, and no matter if you agree with what they're saying or not, but you're like, oh, look at that. Like, I can't tell you, I get so excited and I can't remember his name, but there's one actor that's been in quite a few things. Like he was in just that Air movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. I think he's in that Our Flag Means Death, but he is cleft affected. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, just getting all excited.
Yeah.
Like, because it matters, it matters to see that. And especially I think, for people that have visible differences, it can feel pretty lonely. So that's where I host my communities: is Facebook, YouTube, and that kind
And
of stuff.
are you I'm not sure your community standards, things of that nature. If you're comfortable, would you share if it's agreeable with you, would you share what that community is for those that are listening that are cleft affected that would like to be a part of your community?
Oh,
Um,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
what's
it's
the group?
open. Sorry, it's open to anyone that is in the cleft community. So whether you're a cleft affected individual, you're a parent or caregiver, you're a grandmother, anyone that is in support of the cleft community, it's free to join the Facebook group as well as the newsletter. Um, but again, my whole kind of focus is on the emotional side of things. And, initially when a baby is born with a cleft, their parents and caregivers are taken up with all the surgical aspects because in general, there are at least 2 to 3 surgeries within that first year of life.
Mm,
And then the frequency slows down, like the gap between them gets a little bit bigger. But then once their kids start school or out and about with any kind of group of people, that's when they start looking for support on the emotional side. Because
Mm-hmm.
you know I have a child, and you just mentioned you have children too, that the first time they come home and say that somebody was mean to me or called
Mm-hmm.
me a name,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, okay, how are we going to do this? And so that's kind of my, again, my focus is helping not only parents build those skills to help their kids, but for the adults, or just kids older than
It's
that.
so it's so important to, as a parent, we don't learn these things elsewhere. We need these communities.
Yeah.
What's the name of your Facebook group?
It's just Dragonfly Paradigm. So they can just,
Dragonfly.
search that, as well as, YouTube and Instagram. I'm trying TikTok. I don't know. I'm a little old for that, but
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, and everybody's like, "You gotta do it." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." Maybe I'll get on there and try to do a dance or something.
that's what I tried the first time. I'm like lip syncing to Bruno Mars. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
You're like, "What am I doing?"
That's only for Karaoke Fridays. That's not
Right.
for TikTok.
Yeah. Okay, so YouTube is Dragonfly Paradigm as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then if anyone that wants to connect with you, be it for maybe bring you in as a speaker, or if they're looking to connect with you for that emotional support. Also, real quick, actually, before I even go into that, what about coaching? What does your coaching look like? Is it one-to-one? Is it a group platform? Go ahead,
Yeah,
share that.
right now, just because I am still pretty early on in building this, and I'm just, I'm a one-woman show here. I don't have a team or anything like that. So I'm really trying to focus on, one-to-one mentorship.
Beautiful.
Um, I'd love to do more, with, middle school age kids and above, but just even talking to parents about specific things that their children are going through, you know, that's right in my wheelhouse and what I like to do too. I'm getting more into the speaking aspect, which I really enjoy. I'm actually
Yeah.
heading to New York in July to speak at Smile Train's Cleft convention, hosting
Congratulations.
a session there on how to help your kids talk about their difference. So I'm really excited about that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so yeah, on the website, you can just, there are links about my speaking. There are links about, just contacting and talking about mentorship if that's something that people are interested in. So it's all there on the website.
Beautiful. And what's the name of your website again?
Dragonflyparadigm.com.
You made it super easy. Good job with
Yes.
branding. You took it all across the board. And for
Yeah.
everyone that's listening to us on audio right now, you can check us out we have a YouTube channel. You can watch the video. It is Success After Trauma. We'll also have those links on there. So you can just click the hyperlinks right there, Dragonfly Paradigm. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can download us on your favorite podcast streaming platform so you can listen to us on the go. Vickie, I really appreciate having you in here. It's been your energy, very transparent, very vulnerable, very raw, and that's definitely what I love putting on this podcast, because I know the effect this is having with the people that are listening to it. If there was only one person that this affected, it would be worth it. That's just
100%.
not true. We will touch more.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and it's a beautiful thing. Thank you for being vulnerable, being raw, and being willing to share your story to empower the next generation coming up, and healing their trauma and stepping into their power.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg, for having me in this opportunity. Like I said, listening to some of your other episodes, I knew this was going to be, we're going to be a, meeting of the minds here, because it's so important, all this work, whether you have, a visible difference, or you've had extreme trauma in your life, or, the, they like to say, little teeny traumas. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. We
mm,
all have things that have been challenges for us, and just learning even just a little bit to help you manage it easier is a gift.
that is. Well, I like to ask my guests at the end to kind of share a message. And would you share a message? So if you would just, whatever you're called to share, just take a moment. If you would share a message with the mother out there, or father, that the parent, actually, I'm going to go with mother. I want you to share a message with mother, if you would. So I want you to share a message with a mother out there that is dealing with that, middle school aged child that came home and is having issues at school, and they're not sure what to do right now, and they're in this, they're like, they're feeling maybe inadequate behind closed doors and angry in front of their kids. Can you share a message with them and give them a little bit of guidance and a little bit of hope, because there's so many people in that position right now?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and as a parent myself, we all have these kind of moments that we don't know what to do. And I think a lot of times, especially for mothers, we think we have to know everything all the time. And that's just not the case. You don't have to know what to do in the moment. The biggest thing that you can do for your child is listen. It's
Mm.
not about fixing. It's not about, you know, going in, from 0 to 60 to go to the school, or, find the parents of the other kid. It's just about, you have to be comfortable sitting in the discomfort of witnessing your child's pain, because that was one of the best things my parents ever did for me, especially my mother. She would let me cry. She would let me say, "This sucks." She would let me say, "I wish I was never born this way." And I know it was hard for her to hear, but letting me do that, and
Mm.
just holding me, and sometimes even crying with me, that bond of trust and connection was solidified over and over again. And so, I mean, just again, as a mother myself, I know how hard this is. You just have to listen. You just have to hold them. You have to let them cry. And then you can start to work with them on what should be just this next little thing we can do to feel a little bit better. How do we want to handle this going forward? And, again, I always want to go, handle everything for my daughter, but that doesn't do her any good. She has to learn how to manage these things with my support, of course, but just the honoring and witnessing of the emotion, of the pain, of the feelings, that will be a gift that you can give them that will last their whole lives.
Wow, that is incredible, Vicky. I You took me, when you said the best thing you can do is listen to them. I was like, oh, I was just jaw dropped. That was such a powerful message. Vicky, thank you for, again, for being on her, for being vulnerable, for those mothers that heard that, for the, if you are cleft affected, or if you are, caregiver, parent, again, dragonflyparadigm.com. Get on the newsletter, get connected, get in the community. You are supported. There are people that understand what you're going through, and community is an incredible thing to help uplift you and get you to that next level. Vicky, I appreciate having you on. Until the next episode, be great. It's already in you.